Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to another fantastic living lore Q&A for Mythos Vanesia. Today, the prompt is going to be items and creatures, but I invite anybody that is going to join in and watch to please feel free to ask me any questions that you like. It doesn't have to be on topic. I am perfectly happy to switch topics. For now, though, since we appear to be alone, for the sake of my YouTube, to which this will be uploaded later, we can hop right into some descriptions. I'm just going to fix my light. Alright. Fantastic. Well, as I mentioned today, our topic is items and creatures. So I will open up with a little bit of a description on what I'm talking about here. Every D&D world that I've encountered has, of course, had a wide array of items straight out of the book a lot of the times. Magic items that the players can get their hands on. Different worlds have different levels of magic availability. In my world, magic is fairly commonplace. Enchanting is a common practice. There are multiple methods to this. As such, there are also a great deal of artifacts left in the world. Things that have a great deal of power left over from gods, demons, visitors to the world back in time when it was easier to reach Vanis. These things shape the face of the world whenever they come into play. And for that reason, I have gathered these items together in one place and called them Touchstones. And I'll read you an excerpt on that. Throughout the long history of Vanis, many powers and interests have left their marks upon the surface of the world. Gods, demons, outsiders, and magics have often imposed their will upon the world and the peoples in it, and where they have touched, occasionally, relics of great power have been left behind. These relics have been recorded in many places and many times, fragments of divine will, of eldritch power, and arcane might. Over time, these powerful artifacts have been lost and found, buried and exhumed, wielded in hands both good and evil to bring about powerful change, or to stop the march of that which seemed inevitable. Wherever and whenever these relics appear, their existence inevitably defines the events around them. For this reason, these items have been called Touchstones, a fundamental feature of the age in which they appear. And yet, so often, information about these relics is lost or erased, leaving only names or nothing at all, leaving one to reconstruct their existence only from the marks they have left on history. This is an excerpt from a segment that I'm writing, or rather a small expansion. Hello everyone, welcome Kadre to the stream. Kadre is one of the players in my campaign, brought along today just to help prompt a little bit of our talk, since it's very hard for me to just talk to myself. So welcome. Kadre, I was just talking a little bit about Touchstones, the relics of which the party now possesses, I believe, 3. Absolutely. Well, actually, now that I think about it, that means there are 4 in the party. Yes, so thank you. Yes, the brand new Touchstone. Indeed. Well, actually, you were there, having, yeah, when it was created. No, it's fine. We'll touch back on that. So, touchstones come and go. Sometimes they're destroyed. Sometimes they're created anew. The brand new one to the field is called the Crystalline Promise. And in a very recent session, one of my players, the wizard, Apusand, well, backing up a little bit, the party managed to free two gods, two lovers, that had been bound together in a single body, unable to touch, to see each other. They would have to swap. One could not be in the world at the same time as the other. But because a friend of the party carried one of that god's touchstones, and Kadre here carried the other, Rosalie, or the Rosebound Heart, as it is known, they managed to temporarily free the two gods, and as a reward, were offered boons. Abusand asked for a new staff, and rather than simply produce a nice staff, the god Dulci plucked from his wings in front of the entire party a scale and transformed it into a staff right in front of their eyes, and thus the brand new item, the Crystalline Promise, was formed. And I would like to mention at this point, as I was going to before Kadre hopped in, that if any of you enjoy magic items, fantastic homebrew, things that you can plug into your own world easily, please go over and subscribe to my Patreon. My $6 and $12 tiers will be getting access to the Touchstones content soon as I have finished writing out all of the effects of them. But anyway, Kadre, you can continue on with what you were saying if you would like. Oh. Yes. I think that my music is up too high. Well, that's fine, because there's quite a few touchstones that that I haven't yet defined, so you're welcome to give away the ones that are already in the party. There will be plenty more available to the patrons. Indeed. Flavor? Absolutely. Probably my favorite part about the staff, too. I definitely enjoy weapons that change along with the wielder. And so the idea was, of course, that this is an item that is meant to channel magic, and it reacts to that magic. So as you channel more and more spells through it throughout the day, more and more crystals begin to hover around the orb on its head. These reset come the morning, or come sleep, rather. But still, it's a fantastically dynamic item. And it does actually have more than just an aesthetic purpose. You're going to find this out tonight, Kadre, anyway, as you guys do battle, since Absand is definitely going to be using it. So I'll go ahead and spoil that for you. So whenever a spell is cast on a creature through the staff, a damaging spell, the staff will actually send shards of this crystal that are hovering around its tip, flying towards the enemy. They will embed themselves in the enemy and remain there for some time. They build up in stacks called crystallization. Yeah, it's actually something quite like that. Although I don't play League, so I don't know the champion to which you were referring, but... Absolutely. Fascinating game. But the staff comes with a cantrip. As long as you're attuned to it, you have the cantrip Crystallize. When you cast Crystallize, if the target has, if there is no crystallization on any creatures on the field, then you instead launch shards of crystal at a target of your choosing. However, if there are any shards of crystals, any creatures on the field have stacks of crystallization, then instead all of the shards of crystal erupt, and they will deal 1d8 piercing damage per level on a failed Constitution saving throw. And if a creature is killed in this way, they turn to crystal, as their body is consumed by the shards within them. So fantastically fun item there. The fourth one is Aylin's Moonstone Teardrop. The Tear of Extraordinaire, which originally wasn't intended to be Touchstone, but I had to turn it into one. The art, and for any of you watching, either on my YouTube or on my Twitch, if you look up at the banner on my page, you will notice that there is a beautiful dragon hovering over a mountainside temple and delivering what looks like a teardrop to some figures standing there. Well, that is, in fact, the teardrop. This was revealed to Aylin as she asked more questions about it, that this, in fact, was a gift directly from Extraordinaire to her people, the Moon Elves. I won't go into more detail on that here because I do have a player here, but there are a couple more secrets surrounding that. But yes, so we have the staff, we have the rose-bound heart, which is the violin that Kadre wields, also known as Rosalie, depending on where you hear about it. Absolutely, go for it. Absolutely. Indeed. And do you have that up if you'd like me to read that out? Hmm? Well, I'll let him go into the actual description for them, but the two additional effects that it has, the violin has a number of charges. By expending one, you can play the Forgotten Waltz, which targets a single creature, an enchantment. Or for 3, you can play the Beauteous Trance, which can target an entire group. And you are welcome to go into the details on that if you have that pulled up now. Yes, my favorite. It happens. Sure, that's fine. Yeah. They heard you playing the music, of course, but they don't know that it was a magical effect. So absolutely. Risks are always fun. That's a big one. Indeed. Yes. But of course, it brings the risk of, in an enclosed area or an area that you're not supposed to be, it is audible and people may come to see what is up. Exactly. Yep. Yes, which is another big thing. It's not a set DC like most items have. You make a contested performance check, which makes it incredibly powerful, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, roughly. Yeah. Which you constantly do on performance. 30 performance, 31. What are you, level 8, level 9 again? Oh, God. Yes, well. He's a bard, what do you expect? It's what they do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Which, of course, at his current level, that means that you only have one chance at that because it's a single charge remaining after the 3 that you spent. But as we've seen by the fact that the item has already been enhanced once, it can continue to be enhanced further. All of the touchstones that I have are like this. They are... for those of you that are fans of Critical Role, if you remember the Vestiges of Divergence and how they had expanded abilities as the characters unlocked those, these are the same. Touchstones are very powerful artifacts, and when not in use, they tend to reduce, or if they are, for example, the artifact of a god, that god may choose to reduce the abilities of the item so that it can't just fall into somebody's hands and be exceptionally powerful. But yeah, so eventually that may become even more powerful or gain another effect. We shall see as I continue. Mm-hmm. They're fabulous. Items and creatures. But again, we can divert from topic slightly. I am open to, if people join in on the stream, they can ask questions about whatever they want. It doesn't have to just be about items and creatures. This is just the prompt for people coming in with, jumping in the deep end, so to speak. Oh, no, not at all. And welcome, Demons. Thank you for popping in to listen today. No, they are on Twitch right now, just watching. But do continue with what you were saying. Yes. It was a lot of money. All 12,000. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Way more than 150. 1,000. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, it's you could buy a lot of houses with that money, but you already had one, so. Mm-hmm. Yes. Fabulous item for anybody that is concerned with infiltration. Well, I'm going to hop over to Demons just asked a question in the Twitch chat. He would like to know what kinds of stuff do you think about concerning fantasy military groups? Anything bigger than the Town Guard? Yes. There is a wide array of military action in my world. We currently, in the setting, have... there was a war that raged for many, many years across the surface of Albion, the central continent, between Oramea, the holy city of Surgaya, goddess of fate, and Duskmorrow, the holy city of Vanis, down in the south on the continent of Kettermorn. They would consistently meet in the middle to do battle on Albion because it was the only easy place for them to reach. It has been 10 years since an accord was signed, officially declaring peace between the two, but it is still extremely tense, especially with the recent assassination of a high-ranking member of Oramea. So there is the possibility for wide military action down here. Also, yes, actually, because early in the campaign, it was a long time ago for us, but not so long ago for your character. The town crier, when you reached Finiaglon, talked about that, yes. That's been about a month or so, a month and a half in game. You haven't heard anything new in that regard, which bodes well, because certainly a war would have garnered some attention. Other military action, though, the High Elves of Ethereum, in which the campaign is currently set, are often known to be a little bit militaristic. They are consistently in skirmishes at their southern border with the Norn humans of Evroth. So military action going on down there. We have other military groups within empires and nations, such as you have a subsect of the Ethereans, of Etherean empires, military, known as, and you'll have to forgive me because I forget what I called it. So let me pull that up. I believe that I talked about that in the Gala segment. I do need to consolidate my lore so I can answer things a little bit quicker. Okay, here we are. No. Here we are. The Eketnar. And the Eketnar are essentially like shock troops of the Empire. They are the Blade Singers, the invention of the Oracle of Evocation. So blade singing is actually a recent addition to the world. Only about less than 200 years at this point. There are consistently things going on behind the scenes. You have the Pirate Lords of the Isles of Rem. I am consistently keeping on tabs in my world on what kind of motions they're making behind the scenes. The party has caught hint, I believe I mentioned in earlier Living Lore, that there is potentially some collusion going on between Kinra and the Etherean Empire that may lead to military action against the Isles of Rem and the Pirate Lords. All of these things continually happen in the world. If you'd like any smaller details about military, just ask me something a bit more specific. I can definitely go into detail there. But hopefully that answers the question. If that does satisfy the question, we can jump back to items for a little bit. So we talked about the two touchstones in the party, the Crystalline Promise and Rosalie. But of course, there are more than that. The Tear of Valinaire is still a little bit unknown in its functions, except for the fact that the players do know that it is a moonstone on the outside and mithril at its core. And this opened up a fantastic bit of lore about mithril is not actually of my world. It is star metal. It comes from the heavens. That was... Aelin discovered that. Indeed, yeah. It can only be found in places where there have been star showers. What was I mentioning? Right, but the effects thus far, the players in Aelin have discovered that because it has a mithril core, the teardrop reacts to magic very strongly, as all mithril does. But additionally, the teardrop can take in and store moonlight, which is fantastic for the Moon Elven character, Aelin. She began with an item that allows her to conduct a ritual each night akin to commune. However, the moon must be visible. There must be moonlight in order for her to conduct it. She only gets one question, and depending on the phase of the moon, how strong it is, there's a percentage of failure. It is never 100% successful. It gets up to 96%. There's still always a slight chance of failure at the full moon. And then for each phase that ticks down over the next 2 weeks, because 4 weeks in a month, 8 days in a week in my world, it reduces by 6%. On a new moon, there is zero chance of the question being answered. However, as the moonstone can store moonlight, if it's bathed under a full moon, left out for the entire night under a full moon, then at any time, she can expend the light from within it to commune for a near full success on her question. This, so far, has been its only function, but she is aware that there's more that can be done with it. It can be enhanced through rituals. No, they can be made by, as I was talking about earlier, they're fragments of divine will, eldritch power, arcane might, relics left behind by gods, demons, outsiders, or powerful magics that have affected the landscape. The blood would, in fact, be a touchstone, so that... Yes, that in fact makes 5. And so the blood is very iffy on it being a touchstone, because... touchstones are typically defined by the effects they have on the world, and so far it has had none. It simply exists and was locked away in a reliquary because the people that locked it away knew its potential power. If it had been used, it would have been a touchstone, because it would have had drastic effects on the world around it coming after that. But the blood which he's asking about, of course, is they have discovered the blood of a creature. The only answers they got when they asked what it was from was that it both was and was not a dragon, and that it both was and was not a god. Well, but you did discover further. Hello, awkward dictator, by the way. Sorry, go on. Yes. Oh. One moment. Sorry, you should be able to. Dimmons, answer me a question. Have you been able to hear Kadre this whole time? It's, oh. That is the problem. I do so love how OBS changes my settings every time I close it. Now you should be able to hear Kadre. That's a big oops, because we've been talking for like 45 minutes. And there are big patches of silence that will now make it onto my YouTube. Thanks, OBS.
Okay. Oh dear.
Right.
I would have to recap the.
We'll double back to the other things that you're no doubt very confused about at this point in the video. But for now...
I'm the one who's been speaking, but you haven't been able to hear. I'm Kadre.
Yes. Sorry, everyone. So, we were talking about the blood, though, that touchstone.
Right, so one of the... I asked Rex about it, and I went, would that be a touchstone? And Rex said, yes. And so, one of the interesting things that my character did while we were doing this, he used Identify on it, which he knew would be incredibly risky, and so he asked Aelin to punch him if he tried to drink it. And unsurprisingly, she did have to punch him, and she used Stunning Strike to prevent him from continuing to drink it. But we did glean some very useful information. One of the most interesting things that we discovered about it, or that was shown, was a vision of an familiar figure, a vision of lots of wings, lots of eyes, and then the words, finally, welcome home. Spoken specifically to Kadre, and one of the interesting things about this item is that apparently whenever Kadre looks at it or is near it, he feels nauseated and a strange pull towards it, and no one else feels that. So it's a very frightening and interesting item.
Indeed. I love toying with my players like that, putting things in front of them they have no idea about, but somehow affects them. Ooh, it's the best. Yes. With the Identify, they've of course managed to garner a little bit more information about it. The vision that he had when he tried to use Identify, of course, produced no information about the item, but slammed him into this vision of just repeated patterns of eyes and wings, a vision of a wall of mist parting and closing repeatedly, of an ocean being swallowed by a chasm in its entirety, and then, of course, of the figure that he spoke of. And all of this spoke to their eventual discovery of this must be some form of outsider, something from the far realms. They know nothing more yet. And they're still puzzling over that connection to Kadre, which is a secret, so I cannot speak about that on this stream, but oh boy, I'm dying for them to figure out more, because I know.
Unfortunately, I think we're going on hiatus after the next... Well, not extended hiatus, but like, I think it's like a 2-week break after the next session.
Not quite. So the whole reason that we had to rush toward this session is because of how vacations line up. Opusund is going to be out, and you guys were facing a pivotal moment in the story. So of course I couldn't have a player out during pivotal moments. After this session that will be happening tonight, we have downtime for the party, and that means that I can just message Opusund over his vacation, ask him what his character would like to be doing over a number of days, and we can have sessions that are more relaxed and calm, where you are doing downtime activity.
Oh, nice. It's always fun to do downtime stuff because you get more interesting character development. Often you can discover interesting new features of items, and just develop smaller aspects of things that make the characters more rounded.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're a very roleplay heavy group. If you couldn't tell by the vast amounts of lore that I put into my world, it's absolutely ridiculous. I lose track of my own world sometimes. Thank God for Aelin, who literally writes down everything that I say in documents that I can access. So
I love how it's half the time her voice stream is just clack 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 clack.
Yeah, it's great.
But it's incredibly useful because it's what did I say again? You said this.
And Jinx, I totally agree. I live for the hilarious moments that my party produces. They have me dying sometimes. Some of the excellent fun of D&D is just having the reins snatched out of my hands and getting to laugh along with the party. So it's great.
If I may say, my favorite part of humor so far in the campaign has been, and probably will be for a long time until it is somehow topped, which I have no doubt will happen, just hasn't happened yet, is the opera scene with Nathrisa in the guards' quarters.
Pure brilliance. I wish that I could have recorded that. It was
just...
She's of course a sorcerer, so she has good charisma, but they were pulling a heist on an opera. They were put up to releasing... So this opera house had rooms in the back for actors and a slaver that was in town who owned these two very talented slaves who often did performances and would be doing performances at the opera that night, was keeping his stock in the back room. And Jinx, you are welcome to jump into voice if you would like. It's completely up to you. But anyway, as they were pulling this heist, they of course needed distraction from the guards that were guarding the stock. And so, in a fit of genius, Nathrisa jumped around from acting like a lost actress in the back rooms to sobbing about her husband abandoning her. She waltzed into the dining hall where a bunch of the guards were gathered and began wailing and screaming, pointing at a random guard and saying, "You stole my husband!" And things along that line so loud that it drew all of the guards to her location. It was probably the most fantastic scene that I have ever seen. Fabulous performance checks all around as Kadre went around and locked all of the doors to this central dining area.
Directed guards to her, saying there was some screaming or something going on, sending the ball her way.
It was perfect synergy. And then she just, as soon as the last door was locked, just snapped back to reality and was like, "Oh, never mind, I think I'll go." Popped out the door and they locked them all inside and we're home free. Brilliance.
The whole sequence was just so much fun from beginning to end.
Yes.
But sorry, back to items.
Detours are fine. It's fun to talk about these things.
You know what? Actually, a different custom. It's not a touchstone, but it's one of my favorite things about Rex's campaign is he allows a lot of. Is he okay?
Either or. Still gender fluid. Pronouns are whatever you want. So.
I just like to be sure.
Thank you.
One of my favorite things about Rex's campaign is that he allows a lot of really cool homebrew. Carefully balanced, of course, but one of the neatest things that he let me do is he essentially let me, because I started off the campaign with an item called a violent, which is basically violin but with a T added on because it's a violent violin. I'm the person who makes sense.
It's great. I love it.
But basically it was a violin that I could use as a bard casting focus, but the tip of the blade, or the tip of the violin bow, had a blade on it that he could use to stab with. And while we were in Shino Call, I started sniffing around to get the weapon enchanted, and then I also found a blacksmith who actually altered the actual bow of the violin to be an actual bow.
Yep.
Like he added mechanisms so that it could stay a blade when I needed it to, but when I needed to use it as a bow, I could. So the violin bow became an actual bow for bow and arrows. And then I got the blade enchanted to, and this was really neat because Rex had a homebrew enchantment before I even asked about it. That was part of the lore. What did you call it?
The Matafea.
That's it. Yes. And it was essentially it was like a flame blade, or what actually?
So,
do you mind explaining it?
Yes, actually, I can jump into this. Technically, your character doesn't know because you never researched into it. But the Matafea are an item that already existed in Etherean in particular. They have a long and storied history for the High Elves because they are not standard blades. They are mage blades. It is merely a hilt into which one channels a spell or their mana, and it creates a blade out of magic. And of course, the Etherean Empire being heavily leaning on magic as kind of merit within their society, these things are very important. There are actually duels that they conduct. If there is a dispute between nobles, they will take their matafea and declare a duel against each other. Not so much in recent times anymore. It's more of a tradition now than anything. And typically they wouldn't be fought to the death. They would be fought to attempts to make to yield or to attempt to make the other person release their blade, because if you release it, then the energy is gone, the blade is gone, and you have to put a new spell into it.
So there was that really cool homebrew enchantment that he already had in the campaign, and the funny thing is that that is almost exactly the enchantment that Kadre wanted to put on the violent.
There's enough calories. Orange kind of calories on that.
I didn't call that ironic, did I?
Not yet.
Okay, good. I didn't call it ironic. Good. Because it's not actually ironic. That's just an interesting coincidence. But it ended up with some minor tweaks, which I actually, oddly enough, I have my Kadre's things Google sheet, and I don't actually have that item in here, and I really should add it.
You definitely should. Because memorizing the stats is all well and good, but it's probably better to have a reference. Just saying.
Yeah. But it has charges. It recharges one charge at dawn. It has 3 charges on it. And then I can expend a spell slot, and based on the level of spell slot, it will add charges equal to the spell level. And then basically it becomes a long blade with the versatile property, or not a long blade, it's actually a katana, with the versatile property, and it can be of any energy that Kadre chooses. So it's kind of become his signature weapon.
Yes, just pull out a flaming blade or whatever. It's like, oh, you look like you're weak to ice.
did.
Which is, of course, the benefit, because it doesn't deal more damage than a standard sword. The violent
Elemental.
blade deals damage like a rapier, so 1d8, and this deals damage akin to a longsword, so you can wield it two-handed, but then you can't play the violin and cast spells. For the d10, but normally it's a d8. The only real change is the elemental damage, so... which is fun. It's nice. Bit different than a Matafea in that way, because the Matafea do not become elemental energy. They're always force, because they are pure arcane energy. But I find it consistently amusing that, like, in your character design, in the weapons that you pick, in the things that you ask about in the world, you consistently bump up, actually, on things that I already have. Because I want to... double back to like character design. I typically don't let people multi-class right away. They have to reach a certain level. They have to story it in. Kadre was the exception, because he wanted to be a College of Whispers bard and a rogue assassin. And I already had this in my world. The College of Whispers exists as a secret society within the Amalarnan Republic, spies for the Republic. And since he picked it, I had to do it. I had to honor the lore. It had to be done. And then he went on to say, yes, and I would like to have a violent. And the violent should be a violin with, you can draw the bow out and it's a rapier. And once again, this already existed. Bit of fun fact for you, Kadre. Lykel existed before this campaign. She briefly appeared in my Sunday campaign with Fleur de Lis, the Touchstone, as a violent.
Oh.
And because you picked that is the reason that you met Dulamon / Dulce in disguise. Because Rosalie and Fleur de Lis were designed in this way. Now, that also does make you question if the College of Whispers is oftentimes, like, College of Whispers bards are equipped with weapons like these. Where did they get the idea?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a very specific thing for you both to have thought of.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And then he goes on to be like, yes, I would like to enchant my bow sword and have it produce a magical blade. And I'm like, God damn it, you've touched another thing again. The Matafea exist.
You guys must have been friends for a long time, or am I wrong?
We have years and years now.
Okay, like there's no other way.
Yeah, since long before this world existed. We played D&D.
Years now?
Lord, no, it can't have been that long. I'm not that old. 8. Anyway.
Well, no, I knew Brandon for 8 when we started this campaign.
Well then slightly less. Wait, you knew Brandon before me. Didn't you? Because you guys played. Did you guys?
Well, actually, no. If I played.
Or was it Mask that like introduced both of us to you? It's been so long.
Well.
Bad place to talk about this. We'll figure this out later. This stream is about items and creatures.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
We've known each other 8 years. Let's go with that.
Yeah, 8 years.
Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Sorry.
So yeah, Touchstones, fantastically powerful artifacts in my world, and now the party has like 5 of them. Great. That's fun though. I am the kind of person in my campaign that balances like against power. I don't like to reduce the power of my party. I don't like to like stunt their growth. I would rather put more challenging things in front of them based on the power that they have, which is what I've been doing. I've found that I can still challenge my players. That's good.
You nearly TPK'd us, actually.
Yes, I had a plan for that, though, so...
You did.
Yeah. Next time, die and see what happens. It should be very exciting.
Is he talking about the in the game that we were doing? You told us about some things you had planned.
Oh.
Is that the session he's talking about?
Where I kept saying I was probably going to TPK them? Yes.
Yeah.
That was the session, and what do you know? I was right, and in the most poetic fashion, Kadre here, last man standing, 1 hit point left, killed the boss on an attack of opportunity.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Could not have been more dramatic if it had been scripted.
And that was the best part. It wasn't, but it went so beautifully. Anyway.
Yeah,
Do you want to describe the boss, maybe?
Sure. I believe that I've talked about it in a previous stream, but I'll double back to that as well. It is, in fact, a creature, sort of. I talked about this in my last video, actually, because we talked about gods. And the espers, which this was an esper, are fragments of the god Zeramis, recent discovery by the party. A betrayer god, to put it in terms that people can easily understand. They were shattered, split apart into 8, and then from 4 of these who enacted betrayal again, was broken down further into 16, these 16 espers. And these espers were bound through arcane might and magic to protect the 16 nations of the ancient Jaina in the Gloria Aetam, the previous age. Of course, one of the characters is an Asmar, the daughter of an angel, and bears the mark of Ardent, the god of growth and civilization, and has had dreams that point her towards the need to gather these espers again. And so they must eventually go out and fight all of them. They fought Belius the Gigas, the scion of the First Flame, who came from the head of Jarash, the betrayer, and Jarash carried the First Flame to the Jaina from Ember, the goddess of fire and the second sun in the sky, hence his name. They are going to get more difficult as they progress, and each of them is, of course, related to different elements or type of magic. Some of them go beyond elements. There are 16.
I'd expect them to. I mean, the players are getting more powerful, so it makes sense.
Yes. And the last one that you guys fight, Nathrisa already knows. Although she can run off and fight it early if you guys want to, is maybe just slightly is one of the ones that I don't have the notes pulled up for. Why do I start speaking about something before I'm prepared?
Because that's the way brain works.
Ah, yes, ADHD brain. Thank you so much. Ultima the Resplendent. Who came from Karash.
If I may say, one of my favorite things about Belius was, I'd say, the Gemini ability, because while in some ways it was a counterbalance to, well, in some ways it was a nerf to the pack tactics ability. It wasn't a complete nerf. It wasn't like, oh, he's immune to this. One moment, please.
No worries.
Sorry about that. But it wasn't like just he's immune. It was like you have to strategize around it.
Absolutely. And what he's speaking about is... Now, and some of you may realize, if you're watching this video, in post that, of course, the name Belius, the Gigas, is stolen from Final Fantasy XII, as is the name Espers. It is inspired by that, but not quite the same. So here, Belius was a giant creature who had 4 arms, two axes and heads facing either way. This was his Gemini ability. He received 2 actions on his turn, and each side could take an action. Let's see. Let me just read out the ability for you, because it's rather fantastic. I'm quite proud of it. With its 2 faces and bodies, Bellius cannot be flanked at any time. Additionally, when a single target is engaged with Bellius is not considered engaged for the sake of sneak attacks, pack tactics, or other abilities. Bellius must be engaged with at least one creature both in front and behind it in order to benefit from such abilities. Additionally, if Bellius is inflicted with the blinded condition, each head may make a saving throw, and both must fail for Bellius to be blinded. Likewise, each half of Bellius must be afflicted with the petrified, paralyzed, incapacitated, or stunned conditions separately. And this, of course, was... Now, the monk in my party automatically assumed that he was immune to stunning, which was half true. He had a fantastic constitution, on top of the fact that you would have to stun both halves of him. But... continuing on, each half of Bellius gets an action on his turn. If either of his halves, but not both, is afflicted by the petrified, paralyzed, incapacitated, or stunned conditions, Bellius's movement speed is halved until that condition is removed, and the action for that head is removed until the condition goes away. But of course, the Gemini ability and its size came with a weakness, and this is what Kadre exploited to win by just a thread. Unless Bellius moves at least 10 feet first in any direction, turning 180 degrees costs 10 feet of his movement and provokes attacks of opportunity. And the reason why this is important is because when a head is facing opposite from somebody, it can attack, but at disadvantage. And so, Kadre being on such a sliver of health, and Bellius being on such a sliver of health, it attacked him, and then turned around to attack him again, and it was in that moment that Kadre managed to strike it down.
Wow.
Yes. And all of these, speaking of creatures, all of the Espers are going to have very unique and interesting abilities like this. All of them, additionally, are going to have what is known as the mist charges. And this is what nearly killed the party. It wouldn't have been such a problem if the party was rolling well. But it was miss over and over, and so the battle was dragging out much longer than it was supposed to. And the reason why that's a problem, Bellius gets 3 legendary actions. There's not a lot that he can do with his legendary actions. He can reposition for 1 legendary action, or he can attack for 2, which doesn't sound like a lot, but any legendary actions that Bellius does not spend, when it comes back to his turn, with the remainder of his legendary actions are converted into mist charges. And those stack. At any point, he can spend both of his actions on his turn to cast Inferno. He spends all of his mist charges and produces a ball of flame that explodes in a 120-foot radius for a number of d8s equal to the number of mist charges that he expended.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
So always on the edge of a TPK.
Always on the edge of a TPK. And he got up to a lot of mist charges. So even though people succeeded on their Constitution saving throws, they took a lot of fire damage. And then he continued to build up. And he has something called the Desperate Charge, where he can spend 3 of his legendary actions, gain 1 mist charge, and immediately use Inferno out of turn. It is that, like, I'm about to die, so I'm going to gain less mischarges than I normally would, but pop this off before I might die. So he actually got Inferno off twice. The second one was much weaker, only like 5d8. But still.
Yeah, the Inferno hurt.
Oh yeah. That was fun.
That was a incredibly stressful but very fun battle.
Yes, it was stressful for me. Both the party and Bellius were rolling poorly, but for Bellius it didn't matter as much because he can just bide his time and cast Inferno. But I was over here like gritting my teeth like, oh my god, I really am gonna TPK them.
One day.
One day I will. One day I'll manage, and you will have a very interesting adventure in death.
Fun.
Death is not the end in my campaign. That's too boring.
Your mind is scary. I love it.
Thanks.
I was explaining a different custom item earlier.
You were talking about the sword. You talked about it being able to turn into a bow.
The hat.
Ah, yes.
I never did finish talking about hat, and that was also during the time.
Yes, and you were accidentally muted anyway. So sorry, people.
There was this. Some background, because this actually does involve character design a little bit. Or more, the way my character developed in a way that I didn't really anticipate for during character creation. So I built my character around the stats of dexterity and charisma, because, he's a bard, rogue. Yeah, that makes sense. But the thing is that the way I wanted my character to develop, or the way my character wound up developing, is he wound up having an interest in magitech, in just magic in general, specifically magic theory, and in cooking. So the funny thing is that those all wound up being tied to int.
Of course, yes.
So...
Well, and we do cooking as dexterity, but, like, producing new recipes, because cooking in my worlds, I hate the boring systems of, like, oh, I'm just, I have proficiency in a toolkit, and I'll just roll that and do a thing. Meals, properly prepared meals, have effect. Anyway, continue on, I'm sorry.
No, it was okay, but we actually, I didn't...
That makes... Sorry for interrupting. That makes the last time I listened in make much more sense, because
Yes.
you're talking about bread.
Yes. He learned a new recipe recently, which was this is very simple to produce moss flour bread, and all it really does is give you an inspiration for a couple of hours that you can spend on something. But anyway,
so useful.
Absolutely, it's really easy to produce. The ingredients, since they are made from a particular form of lichen, moss, are very easy to find, so you don't always have to go out and buy them.
I didn't know that we were using Dex. I thought I've been using int as the modifier for whenever I cook.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I apologize. Int is supposed to be for developing recipes. Dexterity is for the actual cooking.
Okay, shoot! I've been making cooking a whole lot harder for myself. I mean,
Oops.
I'm okay using either one, honestly, because,
With the proficiency, it really does offset it very well.
Yeah,
So-
I'm fine keeping it in, because I've been doing it that way so far.
Okay. And now you have the hat, so of course it works for you.
So the hat I actually ended up naming, it's Chapeau d'Espion, which basically means Hat of the Spy. Rex actually helped me come up with the name. I think you actually just named it, if I think. Or it was
No, I think because I don't speak French. God, that we ran through a list of names, and I think I pushed you in that direction. But you were the one that named that.
Oh, okay. But basically, it's a combination of the Hat of Disguise and the Circle of Intellect. It was a very expensive hat. It cost 1,500 platinum, which is 15,000 gold.
Yep.
The other party members were really awesome and really generous, and basically let me borrow money from them to commission the hat.
Money, please.
Yeah, I was like, here are all the things I can do with it if you let me. And the best part, once I and it took about like
Ooh.
2 weeks to make in game, which out of game is forever.
Yeah.
But basically, so the Hat of Disguise lets you use the Disguise Self spell on just at will. So you don't have to use an action, you just do it. And you are disguised. And they have to make some kind of wisdom check or investigation check versus your charisma mod.
They have to suspect an illusion and then make an intelligence check in order to see, determine that the illusion is false.
Yes, thank you. You're right. And then the other thing is the Circlet of Intellect, which it just does exactly one thing. It sets your intelligence score to 19.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a lot.
It is. That's a +4, on the verge of being a +5. Veteran players will, of course, know both of these items. But in my world, they have met a fantastically talented enchanter, and she's very good at weaving enchantments together. It is very expensive, and it takes a lot of time. I don't subscribe to the enchantments taking like a year thing. I think that's boring, so it took 2 weeks.
Which is awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
I will say, I said this before, but because people...
Yeah.
I will say that the hat was worth every gold, because it another thing that my character ended up doing is that at a level he ended up taking a feat that let him use Magitech, which also uses int, and so the hat was very helpful for that.
Yep. Another little piece of design. As I've talked about in previous videos, Magitech is anything in this world, and of course, Kadre, I know you so well as a person. I knew you'd be interested in that. So of course he jumped into that. Now, something that I was going to mention, another reason why you got the Hat of Disguise. This is a good segue into another fantastic item in my world. The Etheric Transcriptor.
Yes.
This is a very fabulous item, brand new, like literally the item itself in my world. It has not been released to the public. It is technically still in development, and Kadre, being a little sneaky little rogue, managed to steal one. So the Etheric Transcriptor, to sum it up quickly, it allows one to transcribe spells from one type to another. It also reduces the time and the cost it takes to transcribe scrolls. This means, and this is why Kadre was so interested in it, that one could take a wizard scroll and, given time and money, can transcribe it into something called a bardic composition that a bard can then learn to add to their spell list, or vice versa. Divine spells can be made into wizard spells, and vice versa. It is fantastic.
You're so generous.
It really is.
My players like versatility, I like versatility, and I like complexity. Now, I didn't make this easy. Let me talk about the mechanics. First of all, the Etheric Transcriptor is an insanely complex item, and of course brand new to the world, so nobody just knows how to use it offhand. It is a giant roll of fine parchment, different colored inks and tools, hundreds of keys that you press and you move the instruments around to put standard glyphs onto the paper, or to draw lines for like sheet music. So, oh god, yeah, there's dozens of those that like I can actually just describe it. I have the description here. I'll describe it as I wrote it as was seen when they found it. So, On one desk, there sit a number of identical devices, each of which appear to be in experimental stages of development. Their complexity is intense, and they look quite weighty, each approximately 2 feet wide, a foot tall, and a foot deep. Big. Approaching the center device, a sense of fascination washes over you at its construction. At the back, there's clasped a fine piece of parchment around a metal rod, an arcane scroll that has been unfurled for reading. This is surrounded by a number of glasses of various magnification that can be moved in, out, and to the side, apparently to examine the intricacies of the runes and symbols upon the parchment. Also hovering over this piece of parchment are a number of odd tools attached to extendable arms, all made of various metals or holding strange crystals. These, it appears, are meant to poke and prod at the scroll and its symbols in order to ascertain certain details about it. Just below, there is a solid pane of clear glass, across which a magical pen is set, ready to trace readouts regarding that which the apparati around the scroll discover. Most importantly, though, is the workstation's base. On the left, a large roll of fine parchment is attached to a rod, which can be continually unfurled across the flat brass surface. Behind this, a number of stoppered wells hold various fine inks, and a fine set of tiny drawers is built into a brick of metal. These, when opened, appear to contain a number of standardized metal stamps of common arcane runes, musical notes, and religious symbols, each of a standard size. With little effort, you can determine these are meant to be slotted into the plate that hangs above the unfurled paper, ready to be stamped down onto it to produce a uniform scrollwork. Another plate on the swinging arm has been folded off to the side, which looks to contain a large gathering of nibs on sets of tracks that would make it incredibly easy for one to produce uniform circles, connecting lines, or musical staves. The paper, which has been rolled out onto the work surface, already contains one finished scroll, which appears to be a musical number. This, of course, was left behind because it would have tipped off the owners of the place that somebody had stolen it, while as the other items were not inventoried. Anyway, going back into the process, though, for this, in order to actually use the etheric transcriptor to transcribe, one must first learn how to utilize all of its tools. This works for any kind of transcription. You have to learn how to transcribe from wizard to bard, which also works in reverse. So once you know that, you know how to transcribe from bard to wizard, from wizard to divine, from divine to bard. Each of these three, you have to go through the learning process again. That said, you can gain proficiency once you start using it, and the proficiency factors into learning later. Anyway, I'll get back to that. So, the way that this works, you have to put in 120 hours of research. This is the starting number. Let's see.
It's minus the spell level times 8 or something.
Let me see. Hold on. Yes, sorry. You have to have a scroll that you're examining for this process. It requires purchasing a scroll. You slot the scroll into the machine, and the starting time for learning the transcribing process is 120 hours minus 8 hours per the level of the scroll. At each 12-hour mark of research, the scribe makes an intelligence etheric transcriptor check, which, for anybody that's not already versed in it, is just an int check. The DC for this equals 10 plus however much time is remaining divided by 12. So at the beginning, 120 hours, that's a DC of 20, 10 plus 10. And this rounds up. If the check succeeds, then you subtract the full 12 hours of time that you spent practicing from the remaining time. If you fail, you learn from your mistakes and you subtract just 4 hours. In the real world, failure is a part of learning.
Yes.
So, yeah. Once the scribe reduces the time to 0, once you have put in all of your research time, major rolls succeeded on all of them at the continually lowering DC, because it is lower, of course.
Oh, shoot. I never made the proficiency rolls when I was making the scroll for Abusand.
You didn't. Oh, and your intelligence modifier is +4 now. So I'm gonna have... That would be a... Wait. Heck. That would be D6.
Oh. Oh.
And on a result of 1, then you drop it to a D4. On a result of 1 on that D4, you gain 1 point in proficiency, and then you repeat the process from the D6. Which, it's your intelligence modifier factors into how easily you learn.
So would you get proficiency after you hit a 1 on the D4?
Yeah, so you gain not your proficiency bonus, but you gain a +1 on checks made with the etheric transcriptor, and you continue making these checks until you reach your proficiency number, and then you're just considered proficient, and it levels up as you continue to level up. Yeah, this is pulled, by the way, from a module that I've slotted into my world for learning new proficiencies.
You were the etheric transcriptor, sorry.
Yes. So anyway, once this is done, the scribe is able to transfer scrolls to slot in wizard scrolls and transcribe them into bardic compositions, or to take spells that they know and transcribe them the other way. So, like in Kadre's case, he can take spells that he knows and turn them into wizard scrolls.
I actually did that already. I took the spell Soul Borrowing and gave it to Abusand.
Yes. Soul Borrowing from the Deep Magic book. Thank you, Kobold Press.
So those spells are so cool.
If you can't tell already, I just love filling my world with shit.
I love magic, so everything is just so fun. I love it.
There's so much. I keep putting in new expansion books, making my own. I'm working on an enchanting system. I think I mentioned that before.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that at some point.
Yes, because I know that you'll have fantastic ideas and help for me. So that will be fun. An actual process for enchanting. What D&D desperately needs.
God, yes.
It's been years since 5e came out. I'm really surprised. I searched and searched, and I genuinely couldn't find like a homebrew system that I liked. That was my style. There are plenty that, break it down into, okay, well, here is a full breakdown of the times that it should require and the amount of material costs and how it works, but that still limits people to just enchanting items with spells that they know. And I don't like that. I would rather, besides which, enchanting is always a very complex process. Why not make it a mini game? It's so much better that way.
When you told me that was what you were going to be doing, I got really excited because I was like, oh, that's fun, because then it's not, oh, I roll a d20. It's you get to play a mini game, so you actually get to, use your brain a bit.
Oh yeah, I designed this with you in mind because you're getting into magic tech. You are definitely going to touch up on enchanting at some point. And I was like, what would Kadre do? WWKD.
Oh my god.
Great minds think alike. You see how this whole thing happened? Oh god. Anyway.
Literally said the same phrase at the same time.
So, that's the etheric transcriptor. Great item for my world. That is another thing that I am going to want to tweak it and touch it up so that it has all of the details present. That will be released on my Patreon as well. Once again, for the $6 tiers. The $12 tiers get access to playtest homebrew content, things that I am not finalizing yet. The etheric transcriptor, I feel, has been tested enough to be in its final stages. So that will be available at the $6 tier.
It does feel really balanced, if I'm honest.
I feel like I've made it difficult enough and like enough work that it is not just a gimme to the players.
Exactly.
That was always the concern, because obviously allowing spells to be transferred from one spell list to the other, they were made that way for balance. But if you work for something, I think that you should be able to, change things a little bit like that. Yeah.
I like that it doesn't let you use the entire wizard spell list off the bat. Like, you convert individual spells. That honestly is
Yes.
a really nice piece of it.
You convert them, and then you have to learn the composition, which of course is easier if you were the one that made the composition in the first place. It significantly reduces the difficulty of actually learning the composition.
It works differently for cantrips, though, isn't that right?
Yes, because of balance, I did make it so that you are limited on the amount of cantrips that you can transfer. That is purely for balance reasons. Like, cantrips are things that you can cast for free, and there is a reason that every spellcasting class only gets a certain number of cantrips. So pushing it too far can really throw the balance off. So for one, learning cantrips, the initial learning time and the learning DC cannot be reduced by being the one that made the bardic composition, and a bard can only learn a number of cantrip compositions equal to their charisma modifier. This is going to apply to the other classes as well. Clerics, it would be wisdom, and wizards, it would be int. Yeah, so.
Was that your computer?
Was it? I didn't hear anything.
I keep hearing a bit.
Oh.
I haven't been hearing that either.
That might be your computer.
Don't know where it'd be coming from. I'm not seeing any notifications on my desktop saying, "Oh, this item's been disconnected." Oh well, whatever.
Yeah, my computer just likes to make the noises and not tell me what it was.
That was happening to me earlier, but it's not me now.
Yes. I'm surprised that your curse jinx hasn't caused the stream to glitch.
Oh yeah, I should have thought about that before I joined.
Mm-hmm.
I know my headphones have been doing funny things, but it seems self-contained.
Hey, good. Do not curse me.
Another neat magical item that you dropped into the campaign, which was, I love it because it was like, I know it was such a, I know you're going to want this, Kadre. Here. It was the runestone rifle.
Yes. No, and that I cannot take credit for the design.
I know. I know you borrowed it from another thing, but it was. I love the fact that you brought it in from somewhere else into it, because it's a testament to how, if I may, just compliment you here for a minute.
Oh, please compliment me.
I love the way you can bring other things in, and it will still feel like it was meant to be there the whole time.
Thank you. I work hard at that. I don't bring anything in that I feel would disrupt the lore. I tweak lore behind items to ensure that they fit into my world. Obviously, the entire world is homebrew, but, I haven't made all of my own races. I use the races from D&D. I've just changed the lore, and I've changed mechanically how certain things work to more fit the setting. There's still inspiration comes from elsewhere quite often. The runestone rifle, which he's referencing, is from the Vault. You can look up the Vault online. It is available for free. A conglomeration of magical items from various creators that has been sectioned out into fantastic Google Docs for you. Great additions to your world, trust me. The runestone rifle, lore-wise, was a creation of the ancient Jaina, a prototype that they found in Besthunal that was never brought into active use before the city of Besthunal was wasted by the High Elves, destroyed. And I figured it would be a good time to toss it in, considering Magitech is becoming a thing, considering Kadre has already asked Nicomedes to develop a magical rifle.
Oh,
Different
I
than
should
this.
talk about that.
Oh, please.
No, but flip round first. That way it's not like go bouncing between topics.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's fairly pretty much it. It's yeah.
Like, okay. We've been touching on it a little bit about how Kadre is kind of getting invested in Magitech. One of the interesting things, or one of my personal passions as a player is honestly magic theory in tabletop games. Because for me, magic theory has so many possibilities and so much depth and so much complexity that, like Rex said, I like complex things. I'm very much the same way. I love deep, complex mechanical systems that allow for flexibility and chances of failure or chances for extreme success, and that's kind of what magic theory is. But one of the things I was asking Rex about early on was how enchanting worked, and essentially the way enchanting items works in the campaign so far is there's a kind of a spectrum. Like on one hand you have items that are just items imbued with pure magical energy and force of will. Is that right?
Correct.
And then the other items are enchanted using air or aether infused runes. One of the first ideas that I had as far as that was concerned was basically using a few enchantments and then an invention of Nicomedes, which is this aether generator, to have a machine automatically inscribe runes on an item and then infuse it with air, which would essentially make an enchanted item, and thereby automating this process. So you basically have created an automated enchanting machine.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's just... The other idea I had was a rifle, which...
And this is horrifying.
It's so stupid when we did the
This is a
math.
war crime. Okay, but continue.
So, anyone who's looked at physics knows that the terminal velocity of an item is determined by gravity versus air resistance. In D&D lore, what are they called? They're called interdimensional spaces. Interdimensional spaces can be devoid of atmosphere. They can have no air, no gases, nothing. They can be completely devoid of atmosphere. So I had the horrific idea of basically, and I asked Rex also if gravity-altering spells existed. And he was like, yes, they exist.
Yes, there's reverse gravity, and you can technically finagle that spell to instead, because I like versatility, change the direction and point gravity that way,
So the idea was this. You have an interdimensional space with the spell of alter gravity, basically moving whatever's in there in one direction. And then you have, at either end of this, you have another spell. I think it's a specific type of portal spell that has two
Arcane
portals.
Gate.
Arcane Gate, yes. That has two portals, and one leads to the other, so it's basically like thinking with portals. Because the interdimensional space would have no atmosphere, if there weren't a limit on the alter gravity spell, or any of the spells for that matter, over a period of time it would approach the speed of light.
Yep. Theoretically, it's for clarification. You put in a bag of holding devoid of air or something like that. You put arcane gate here, and you put the alter gravity spell here, so it's pointing gravity in this direction. And then you make the enchantment so that when you drop something through the opening, this gate vanishes for long enough for the item that will become the projectile to end up in the middle, and then it reappears and it begins to pass quickly, continually accelerating in this field of gravity through these gates, faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster.
It appears, releasing it from the dimensional space.
You open it again, and the arcane gate instead directs it the other way, points it back out, and you have a projectile traveling faster than sound, close to the speed of light. Could be a coin, but it will produce the impact of an asteroid.
Within 10 minutes, reaches... It's scary, but you have to sit there for 10 minutes while it accelerates. So, you have to prep things.
Mm-hmm.
In a regular combat thing, it basically produces damage that's a little bit above a longsword. Like, if you just shoot it in a regular combat round, it's just produces it damage equal to about a longsword, I think.
Less than that, because it would probably only accelerate enough to deal damage equal to a fall of 10 or 20 feet. So it'd be 1d6 to 2d6, depending on the item that you're using.
I think it's like a metal ball. You'd use like
a ball bearing.
Yeah. But if you were to, say, activate it and then hold it for a couple of rounds, you could, do some serious damage.
Don't miss.
Don't miss.
Especially if there's a city nearby.
Oh.
Yeah. This Kadre is the kind of person that would come up with the peasant railgun, okay?
But better.
Yeah. Worse! Because you can obliterate a city with it. Anywhere, anytime. Just war crime right here in your pocket. Yeah.
Giraffe. Chump change.
Oh, God. Yeah, so we'll see how well that works out. Of course, there is the thing to think about of, extra-dimensional spaces within extra-dimensional spaces. The arcane gate spell may not react well to being inside. Of course, then you have another option of just, making a bomb using a triggered arcane gate inside of a portable hole or something. Let's not talk about that. I don't want to give him any more ideas.
Too late.
So, house rule. The black hole, the portable hole, and bag of holding black hole bomb is only allowed once per campaign. Choose wisely. Yeah. You know about that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Annihilate everyone.
Yes, possibly yourself too. Yeah. So that's great.
So that's one of the reasons why I got into Magitech, not just because of the whole, not because of the war crime, but actually one of the other items I want to make, which is actually a really simple small item, is just it's a scope. It's just a magical scope that I can attach to my bow or rifle. I just want to be able to see things far away.
Yep. That's not that. Yeah, and that's not that hard. That is definitely something that can be done.
Or earbuds.
Oh, you gonna invent the iPod?
Oh no.
No, not the iPod, because that's copyright. I don't want to get copyright striked. Okay. The K-pod.
The little communication earbuds.
Yeah, those are already things that can exist, like earrings of sending, or of message, whatever.
I'm thinking more like constantly open line of communication kind of thing.
Yeah. They had those in Critical Role as an item, just earrings that whoever was wearing them, they could just tap them, and as long as they were touching them, everybody with an earring could hear them. So yeah, those are items that already exist. That can be done through simple enchanting, but Kadre could invent the phone.
just you How would I do that? I guess you'd have to have like some kind of. I guess you'd have to use like a unique ether signature, and then like that would be converted into a number that you would then dial into the phone, and it would just automatically connect to that person's like.
Or string of sigils.
Or string of sigils.
Because sending stones are point to point, sigil to sigil. So if you consider, I love talking to Kadre about magic theory because we both give each other great ideas. So if you would consider, say, like you had a tablet, a slab of some kind. For the sake of argument, let's say that it's shaped like a smartphone, whatever. And you string into this hard carved or whatever a string of sigils, and this is its unique sigil signature. But part of the enchantment is you can scroll on it a set of sigils that you know, and this transfers the connection of this tablet, this sending tablet, to the tablet in question that has this string of sigils that you just inscribed.
So it'd be like sending. Well, no, what it would work. It would work similar to Circle of Teleportation, but instead it would be for like message or sending.
Yeah, for voice communication rather than like actual teleportation. Yeah, definitely. Another thing in my world, Shania Erin, the owner of the Arms Scale, very fantastic enchanter and now friend of the party, invented a process by which, by which the sending spell can be inscribed to scrolls and onto stones much easier, which rather than having sending stones being like 2,000 gold for a pair, drops it to a tenth of that price. Which is great. So the party is chock full of sending stones at this point. And my world is too. The world being the age that it is, having had its golden age and transitioned into the Sandri Atem for 1,243 years since the transition to that age, I figured some advancements were necessary, and communication was a big one. People need to communicate along wide distances when you have so many different nations and things in the world happening and changing so quickly. It just seemed logical.
That does make sense. Actually, you could have it be message, and then you'd have like relay towers that would then relay the message that you're sending based on the specific sigil that you typed in. So the little phones would be cheaper, and the towers could be something that cities would build.
Perhaps. I think initially the expense would be high anyway, just because of the novelty of the invention. And the towers, of course, then you run into the problem of there's no such thing as satellites in these worlds. These are etheric signals. You can't just beam them places, so crossing wide oceans, the message cantrip is limited to 120 feet, so you'd have to place these over 120 feet. While sending is like across plains.
You could have the towers communicate the messages through sending. So basically they take the message signal and then turn it into a sending signal that would be communicated to another tower that would be turned into a sending signal. Or not a sending, a message signal.
Potentially. There's still the limitation of the message cantrip is 120-foot range, so you'd have to be within 120 feet of one of these things.
Yeah, that is.
But it could be, like, something like that could be used for, like, city communication. Like there's for important governmental buildings, to speak to other cities on their continent, or to like international embassies or something. They would have like one of these systems and the tower in a central location that members could access. Something like that. Something to think about. I don't know. If you invent things, then that's on you. I'm not going to dictate what you invent. Only what's possible.
Would it be possible to alter the sending spell to deliver information besides words?
Not the sending spell, but there are things that can do that. It would probably have to be an entirely new spell based off of this one, based off of sending.
That's what I'm thinking.
So something like that does technically exist in my world, but this bumps up on creatures, so it's good on topic. There are creatures that exist in my world called Cheshires. Cheshires are creatures that deal very heavily with space. They can manipulate space. They can jump across space very easily. I have been working on designs for Cheshires as... So Cheshires are both a race and a class. Because Cheshires, when they're born, come into unique abilities. So although they can class into whatever they want, the fun part of being a Cheshire is getting access to the Cheshire classes. When you are a Cheshire race, you can also pick the Cheshire class, and then there are 6 subclasses to pick from. Anyway, I'm getting slightly off topic there. I
want to hear about that.
Oh, yeah, no, that is another fantastic piece of homebrew that I'm working on. Some of it is already complete. Here, let me just, for the sake of...
Maybe I shouldn't hear about this.
Well, you can hear about this little part, because I'm not going to talk about, like, their specific stuff, and I'm only going to talk about one specific spell.
Okay, cool.
And this information Aelin already knows because she got it from the Book of Wondrous Answers.
That's good.
Let's see, so homebrew Cheshire. Here we are. So, the 6 subclasses that are available, the Cheshire's Path. And these names are not final. But we have the Arcane Aberrant, the Deathwalker, the Fate Beast, the Astral Lord, the Planar Monk, and the Purist. These are the subclasses that you can pick. So far, the Deathwalker is currently in playtest in another campaign. So far, going well. The balance seems great. The Arcane Aberrant I've tried out. The Arcane Aberrant I feel is fairly balanced because it is almost exactly a wizard, but it has access to the Cheshire spell list. The Fate Beast has yet to be tested, and the Astral Lord is a subclass, but not a player subclass. It is not made to be balanced. It is made for GMs to create villains out of. I won't say anything more about that. Because you do know that the Astral Lord is the one that has their eyes on Aelin.
Go figure.
Go figure! Yeah. But one of the spells, the spell that I was going to speak about, is called Planar Message. So sending can already reach across planes, but it's limited to 25 words, and it's limited to verbal only. Cheshires, being able to interact with planes, have a spell, a 2nd level spell, that they can access on their spell list, known as Planar Message. So 1 level lower than sending, but in addition to that, let's see, where are you? It is much better than sending. They are able to work space to their advantage. Hello? Find it. Okay. Sorry, my Control F isn't working.
Well, that sucks.
I'm not so good with...
Oh, Lord almighty. Okay, I'll just scroll through and find it myself. Control F is the find function. La-da-da-da-da-da-da. Here we are. So, Planar Message. Now, there's a little bit of variance to it. At the GM's discretion. The length of the message can be up to 100 words instead of 25. It takes 1 to 4 actions, depending on the length. For every 25 words, essentially, it takes a round. But, additionally, rather than sending words, you may telepathically communicate a short series of clear, still images to your target, each image counting as 10 of your allotted words. So you can send up to 10 images. Or you can intersperse words, image, to help fully communicate your point. This spell, let's see. Additionally, you may choose to make the target aware of who has sent the message or hide your identity from them entirely. The spell can reach its target, and the target may reply even if they are beyond barriers that would typically block spells, such as sending or scrying, because Cheshires can warp space in that way to kind of work through potential barriers like that. However, it will fail if the target is within an anti-magic field. So yes, there's precedent for spells like that. Of course, Cheshire magic is unique to Cheshires, being bathed in those planar energies. That is what gives them access to that spell list. So, good inspiration to work off of, not something that... you couldn't create that exact thing. But maybe if you made friends with a Cheshire, you could have them enchant something with it. Ooh. Who knows?
Awesome.
Well,
I wish I could do that.
Backwards from the dreaming spell.
You could indeed, yes.
And kind of meet in the middle in between the sending spell and dreaming and kind of find a midpoint.
It's a good point to work from. We are coming close to 7 o'clock, and typically I run these streams about 2 hours or so. So we have 8 more minutes of time. I don't know who is still watching, who's still in the chat, but if you have any questions from me, questions for Kadre, then please feel free to post them in the chat. I'll read them off, and we can answer those. In the meantime, I never did get to... We opened up with talking about the Touchstones, and
Yeah, you're right, sorry.
how many are in the party, but I never did get to talking about the others. And I'm not going to mention the effects of them, because Kadre's here, and also because some of them aren't designed yet. But once again, for those of you watching either now or on my YouTube later, if you would like to see the Touchstones, please jump over to my Patreon, give a subscription. The $12 tier will have you seeing them earlier than the $6 tier, because these are, of course, going to be opened first in playtest format. And then I'll be releasing the full document to the $6 tier once I feel things have been tweaked and balanced appropriately. Additionally, if you have any suggestions, I do have on my Twitch page a suggestion box right down below. You're welcome to put suggestions in there. I will get to them in the next video. But just so that you know what we're working with, the names of a few other touchstones. We have Sirius, the Solar Heart, Esper Marsuk, the Weirdlock Tach, the Seven Unfettered, and Lomigil, the Twilight Sword. Now, there's also Fleur de Lis and Rosalie, the twin violins made from the heartstrings of Dulce and Fleur, the gods of indulgence and bounty and beauty in the arts. And the crystalline promise that we talked about earlier. However, for these items, I can give brief descriptions of them, since names mean nothing.
Oh, we never did discuss, or never did go into detail over Archenemy.
You're right. Archenemy. Archenemy will also be added to this list.
Asking about that, actually.
Yes. Why don't we... let me do, because these descriptions are short, the descriptions of the things that I just mentioned. So we have Sirius, the Solar Heart, based on the information that Aelin turned up. Sirius has turned up time and time again, but nobody knows where or when it will turn up. When it does, it is always very, very obvious, like a star has been plucked from the heavens and placed upon the earth. It is theorized that Sirius is attributed to Zur and Ember, the gods of the twin suns of the world. And usually, the paladins and clerics of these gods find it first. Most likely, their gods lead them to it. Those that hold Sirius, it is said, hold starlight and sunlight in their hand, and burn with daylight no matter how dark the night. Fire cannot burn them, and they are more blinding than any angel in the heavens. But, unlike any heavenly flame put upon, like any heavenly flame put upon the earth, those that hold it eventually turn to ash, and Sirius vanishes with them. A dangerous and beautiful item. There are the 7 Unfettered. Now, when I say these, there may be some people, if you like to read fantasy stories, that recognize the names when I get to them. But the 7 Unfettered are so named because their power breaks one from the cycle to which Fetter, the goddess of the Grey River, Lady of Death, holds all life. While the river flows one way, it allows one to stand against the current and stride back. They are 7, and they are 1, and they are named for the ones that forged their power. Rana, the Restful, Masrael, the Unweary, Kibeth of the Far Strides, Dairim of the Silver Tongue, Baelger the Witful, Sereneth the Powerful, and Astariel the Sorrowful. They always come as a set. And those of you who have read Sabriel or the Porson series will recognize those names immediately. Those of you that have not should absolutely read that series because Garth Nix is a fantastic author.
If what I think you're saying about the 7 Unfettered is what I think you're saying about the 7 Unfettered, Kadre is going to be very, very interested in them.
I don't know. I can tell you this bit because if you went and picked up the book, you'd know it anyway. They're known as the Bells of the Necromancer.
Oh, okay, that's good.
They can be used for good or for ill, to be fair, but it is to stand against the current of the river of death is to break the cycle of death, so obviously. They can be used against the undead, too. But yes, the point being, I have homebrewed the Bells of the Necromancer, the Bells of the Aporson into my world because I love that series so much, and I just thought that they needed to be put into D&D. The Weirdlook talk, there's very little information on this. However, it is attributed to the strange form of magic that appears in Evroth. Let's see. It is unclear on what the name directly translates to. It could mean a child, a seed, a spawn of something of the first Weird. It grants power at a cost. The powers that it grants are said to be beyond the natural confines of magic. And the magic of the Weird, which is cast by the Norn humans and the orcs of Evroth, those that reject the traditional arcane. The Esper Marsuk, very few accounts have been found of this as well, but the accounts are from various people, each one different in their attempt to describe it. Usually it boils down to the Esper Marsuk being entirely incomprehensible and uncomfortable. They agree on one thing, that it makes the unknowable knowable. And the quote that is commonly referenced in regards to it is, "Take care in trying to comprehend that which was not meant to be understood. The minds of mortals were not made to know such things."
That reminds me of the vial. Also, the previous item reminded me of the vial because you said, like, it's...
Yes. Let's see, what else do I have here? We have Fleur de Vie and Rosalie, which of course are the twin violins that we've already mentioned. And... Sorry, one moment. Kadre, are you still there? It's my sound just did a thing.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
Myself because a reminder went off.
Just making sure. So Fleur de Lis and Rosalie, the twin violins from Dulce and Fleur, we've already gone over those. Both of them have things that are related to enchanting people. And then L'Omegil, the Twilight Sword. This is definitely central to the campaign, so I will only say that which the players have already discovered. It is a relic of the High Elves, something that holds a great deal of respect amongst their society. Very powerful, and only able to be held and appropriately wielded by a member of the 5 pillars, the founding families of the Etherian Empire.
Was it 5 or 6 pillars?
5 pillars. It is the light in the darkness, and the darkness and the light. L'Omegil, the Twilight Sword, is the pride of Etherian, and that which came before it. Lost many times before, it has led the elves in many of their darkest moments as a beacon through shadow, but has also been at the head of the darkest crusades in the history of the Empire. It is a relic of 2 faces, opposites, and must have balance. For every good deed that is wrought by its power, eventually, it will balance the scales with an evil one. It is said to have been forged from a fragment of the Shadowfell, bound to a fragment of the Feywild. It draws upon the power of the ancestral home of all elves. Brought to bear upon the mortal world, when the veil was dropped upon it, the power wrought within it was done before the setting of the Aether dawn, and thus holds the power that was once thought lost forever. It can bring into the world great magic that has not been seen before on the face of Vanis, things beyond the nature of spells, but it hungers too. As a thing of balance, it must devour magic around it in equal turn. Anyway, now that we talked about those, it is 7:02, but I will spend a little bit of extra time to talk about Arch Enemy. Arch Enemy was just picked up by the party, and it definitely qualifies as a touchstone. Arch Enemy was brought over from Kinra, the nation to the east, and it is a sword of legendary power that has often been wielded by its warriors and samurai. No, I should have pulled this up while I was talking. I never learn. So that is in... See, this is where things get confusing, because this one I haven't added to my Touchstones list yet, so it is still buried in another... Yes, and I'm trying to remember again which one. Was it? No, that is the wand. It is somewhere.
I believe in you.
Let's see, stranded, slumber in sight. No, not seeking the seekers. No, I name all of my segments creative names, but then completely forget what they mean. Ah, here it is. I remember now.
I do that too. All my playlists for music are emojis.
Ah, oh my god.
It's a problem.
That's terrible. So, Arch Enemy, also known as Fagwan, in the proper language of Kin, to describe it visually. A masterwork katana rests within a beautiful sheath of mother of pearl and deep aubergine lacquered wood. Intricate designs patterned along its side, but half hidden. From hilt to tip, the entire blade is wrapped in thin bandages, each one written with ominous prayers in Kin, overlapped so most are unreadable. One is very clear. Mercy and death to the name which he whispers. May it be without cruelty or pain, so Fagwan may never whisper mine. Another says, may forgiveness come for he who the blade draws. The only visible text upon the sheath are the Kin characters for Arch Enemy. Though the blade is firmly locked within its sheath by the bindings, the hilt is mostly uncovered, and absolutely beautiful to behold. The thick cloth ito, which is jet black, parts in the traditional diamonds to show a single dragon scale through each of the 7 windows. There is one of sapphire, one of emerald, one of topaz, one of citrine, one of ruby, one of rhodochrosite, and one of amethyst. Legend tells that the gemstone dragons that gave these scales gave them willingly and imbued their power into this blade. The blade cannot be drawn, and the blade cannot be attuned to by traditional means. The person that wishes to try to attune to archenemy must keep it with them for a week, and during this week, they may begin to hear whispers from the blade as the blade tests and tries them. If the blade chooses them, they become attuned to it. And when it does, they hear it whisper a single name. The blade chooses the arch enemy of its wielder. It looks into their past, their present, and their future, and selects one individual that the owner believes, has believed, or will believe to be truly irredeemable and a true enemy to them, or the one which will pose the greatest danger to its owner, should the blade weigh its owner to be a person of great value or good. This will be the name that the blade whispers, and from then on will be the arch enemy of the blade and its owner until such a time as the owner dies or the sword is passed on. In instances of great danger, the blade might, but is not guaranteed to change the name of the archenemy to a new target that poses its master danger. Only in the presence of this enemy will the bindings turn to ash and the blade be drawn. And against this enemy, the blade is incredibly powerful. However, in its sheath, the blade can be wielded like a standard sword. You may strike enemies with it, and it will cut them as though you hit them with a standard blade. 1d6 slashing damage. It gains a powerful additional ability when it is able to be drawn. In addition to being more powerful, it ups to 1d8 slashing damage, and an additional 1d10 if the target that they're striking is the archenemy. But there's an additional one-time use ability that it gains, extremely powerful once it is drawn. After it has been drawn, and the archenemy is slain, it is forcibly resheathed against the will of the master, and the wrappings reappear. The owner must then add a new bandage with a new prayer of their own, and the sword will not whisper again for a full year, unless it is passed to a new owner, in which case it will test and select that owner over the course of a month. So, very complicated, very interesting touchstone there. That will also be available in the document that I'm producing. But now we are bumping up on our end time. We're past our end time, rather, as we hit 7:08 now. So, I would just like to thank everybody that stuck with me this long. Those of you watching the stream, thank you so much. For those of you that missed parts, please check out my YouTube. This video will be going up over on YouTube just shortly. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the lore here. There's plenty more to talk about, and you can help me with my world by continuing to ask me questions, coming to my Living Lore Q&As. Your questions help me produce answers. I am very good at producing stuff on the spot. If you enjoy the content that I'm producing, if you want to see some of these homebrew items available to you to use in your campaigns, please subscribe to my Patreon, where my subscribers will get access to this homebrew content as it continues to release, as in addition to other things, being able to vote on the next videos that I produce for my YouTube channel, things like this. Thank you all very much. Jinx, Kadre, if you'd like to say goodbye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye, indeed. It was fantastic to have you both, and thank you for helping me keep this thing going.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Slev. I will be seeing you guys next time.